Hello there and welcome LinkedIn Live Community Virtual Space Hero Community to another conversation about hybrid work and virtual work. Today we're picking up on a topic that came straight from you, our community, and it came up through one of our previous LinkedIn Lives where we were discussing the trend towards virtual communication and how important it is that also we upskill, whether we are managers, employees, just us working in a virtual environment, we need to upskill on how we present in a virtual context. And as many of you were so interested in that question, I'm really more than happy that I was able to get one of the leading experts in the field to join us today on the virtual space here, LinkedIn Live stage. And today we have with us Lorraine K. Lee, who is a virtual speaker who has been doing keynotes all over the place, all over the globe with Fortune 500 companies. And she's also an 11 times LinkedIn learning instructor. So welcome with me, Lorraine K. Lee, on our stage. Hello there, Lorraine.
Hi, Barbara. Hi, everyone. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for making space in your calendar. I do know that you are pretty busy because you are also working on your own. You're running your own business for now 4 months, right?
Yeah, not even quite 4 months. It's early stages.
Early stages, that is fantastic, Lorraine. But I need to jump back and help understand our audience a little bit. How did you get into the field of virtual work, virtual communication, and particularly, how did you become an expert on virtual presentations?
Of course, yes, happy to share. So, I have been working in tech all of my life in an editorial function. And so, started off at a startup, moved to SlideShare, which is a very well known presentation company. SlideShare was owned by LinkedIn at that time, moved over to LinkedIn proper. And then, most recently, my last role was at Prezi, which is another presentation platform. And so, I think through all those experiences, LinkedIn, SlideShare, Prezi, they're all very focused on the professional audience, professional side of things. And it was through those that I really realized the power of presentations, of course. Being in business, presentations are always going to exist. And it was really at Prezi where I figured, being at a presentation company, I feel like I should be a little bit more comfortable public speaking and getting my voice and message out there. And so I just decided to take it on as a personal challenge. I was lucky enough that I had a mentor at Prezi named Spencer who agreed to kind of coach me and review all my recordings and things like that. And then, it just took off and it became this whole other thing and became kind of a side hustle. And now it's a main part of my company, my solopreneur journey.
Oh, wow, that sounds interesting. And I think we're already diving into the topic because the one thing that you mentioned is you had a mentor who was giving you feedback. And I find it really very interesting because also in our virtual trainer programs or virtual meeting facilitator programs, we always get the feedback from people that they don't really ask for feedback when they
Mm,
are presenting online, or they don't even record themselves to
yeah.
see how they come across in a virtual context. And that's so different to when people need to go on a big stage, right? Everybody usually goes on a big stage, gets the feeling, and then gets some feedback, right? But
Right.
when we talk about the virtual space, sometimes we don't really do that. What is your experience and what do you think about that?
Yes. So I definitely think it's important to watch yourself afterwards, but I get why people are hesitant. Like even now when I record this, like I will watch this later, Barbara, but it will take me a few days because I'm like, oh, I don't want to hear my voice and see how I come across. So I get that people are hesitant, but I mean, feedback and watching yourself is really the best way you can learn, you can improve because you see kind of maybe you have some strange presentation quirks. Maybe you are saying a lot or your hands are gesturing like crazy. So it is really important, even though it is a little bit nerve-wracking. You'll get used to it and just know that when you watch yourself you're going to find things and it's the best way for you to get better.
Absolutely. When you think back, Lorraine, and your journey from a presenter on a stage to becoming a rather virtual presenter? And I do know that you also nowadays you do a lot of virtual and hybrid work. So what were the pillars, the most important aspects that you started to look at the beginning in order to move sort of your speaking from a stage, from an on-site stage to a virtual stage?
Yeah, so I think, a lot of principles when it comes to presentations hold true both for in person or virtual. The things I think that have really kind of helped me thrive as a virtual speaker, three things come to mind. So the first one, there's something called the Think, Do, Feel matrix that my colleague Spencer I mentioned earlier taught me about. And essentially, there was this matrix that was created by this professor, and it was the Think Do matrix. And so let's say you have like think, do here, and then you have now, after here. So you go through, okay, what does your audience currently think? What are they currently doing? What do you want them to think after they see you speak? What do you want them to do after you speak? And what Spencer did is he added the feel part because emotion is so critical to
Mm,
connecting with your audience, especially in a virtual space, right? And so, kind of thinking through the structure of your presentation, how you want these sorts of things to change, I think is really key. The second thing I would say is when it comes to virtual, being organized and like really thinking about the structure and the order that you want to display your information is so critical because, I mean, Barbara, I'm sure you've seen attention spans are very limited virtually. And so to be able to create really clear structure, okay, I'm going to talk about these three things for the next 30 minutes, and then we're going to have Q&A after, and just being really clear about that helps keep people focused and engaged in a virtual space. And then the last thing I would say is just thinking about whether the topic that you want to speak on, how it lends itself to visuals, because we all know visuals are really important to a presentation. I think even more so virtually, again, because people are distracted and we want to grab their attention and we want them to really process visuals faster than text. So we really want them to process and remember what we're talking about.
mm, mm, mm. Three super important points, Lorraine, that you're making here. And I'm just thinking about the second one because this is also one of the things that I just recently reviewed again with my speaking coach, Mary. She called it signposting, right? So that
Ah,
first of
yeah.
all, you give the structure and you always help the audience to move with you through the presentation. She always told me, Barbara, you need to make it, you need to be easy to hire
Yeah.
and to follow as a listener.
Yeah, exactly. And I presented a new talk to Cisco yesterday, and I literally had a progress bar on the bottom at the end of each section. And it was only four sections, so you kind of know what's coming up. But I got feedback, oh, the audience really liked that. So yeah,
Mhm,
giving them those
mhm.
signposts is important.
Fantastic. Great point. So, the three most important pillars to consider when giving a speech. I do know that you have been posting also previously quite a lot on LinkedIn when it comes to virtual body language. So,
Yeah.
when you go on a virtual stage, what maybe was also, what are the things that you take into consideration, and what is the most difficult thing for you? I'd love to hear that as well.
Sure. Yeah. So the first thing I would say is that your framing is really important. So you have to start off there because you can see both of us right now, Barbara, like we have good framing. We have a little bit space above our head. We have our torso showing, and then our hands are up on screen, right? A lot of people on video calls right now or virtual stages, their head is just like right here. It's way too close. And then because you only see their head, you can't see their hands because they're just right up against the video. And it's quite interesting actually that when you are that close to the camera, it's actually possibly making the person on the other side of the camera feel uncomfortable. And I learned this from people skills expert Vanessa Van Edwards. She says that when we are too close to the camera, it replicates what we feel in person when people kind of get in our personal bubble. You're like, you're too close, you're making me uncomfortable. It activates the amygdala in our brain, which processes fear. And I mean, that's like not a feeling we want to be giving people, right? So sit back a little bit, make sure you have a little bit of space, but essentially you want to be taking up with your body and your head most of the screen. And then also remember to keep your hands higher up there so people can see it. And the thing about
Mhm.
your hands is that hands have so many positive benefits when you show them. You seem more trustworthy, you seem more personable, warmer, energetic. And so lots of benefits there. In terms of, let me think, what is hardest? Probably eye contact was hardest to start. I don't know about, I see Barbara's, you're doing great eye contact. But essentially when you're on video, it's not like in person where you can look into someone's eyes. You see a lot of people on video calls, they look kind of down like this at the speaker. But really you should be looking straight on at your camera or a little bit below your camera. And that's going to make it seem like you are looking directly at the person. So that took a little bit of practice, but now it's unnatural for me to not look at the camera. So you can get there.
Totally true. And I just wanted to pick up on what you were saying from Vanessa Van Edwards, because it was also her, I think, who was analyzing the how do you say, successful TEDx speakers, right, or TED speakers.
Yeah, yeah.
And she found out that particularly that those who were using more hand gestures on a TED stage, a normal stage, they were more successful than those not using hand gestures.
Yeah,
And I
that was
think
exactly it.
I don't know a study about doing that in the virtual space, but I also when I'm online, I always try to show my hands, because I think we have as human beings, we have sort of a thing that we feel better if we know what is happening with the hands. We don't like them to be hidden even in the pockets, right? So
Exactly.
hand gestures, and I think it makes you different. It's a difference because there are not a lot of speakers or presenters or facilitators using properly the hands, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it adds a little bit more energy, right? Like again, virtually we have to kind of overdo, over accentuate, over just do more than we would do in person because we have this screen. It's like, kind of muting a little bit energy. So hands really help contribute to kind of that enthusiasm and yeah, just the energy you have on camera.
But it's so fun because you're saying we need to do a little bit more. I just need to be, because I'm such a gesture-ish person. I swear I always need to slow down a little bit rather than adding more, because I'm also used to the bigger stages. And then I remember my first webinar, I don't know, like 6 years or something ago. And I remember when I was doing when I was reading into how to do a great webinar, great presentation, they also talked about hand gestures. But what I didn't realize is, first webinar, I started doing a lot of hand gestures that were in front of my face, right? Because I was trying to show them. And that
Mm.
was like, well, me overdoing a little bit the hand gesturing thing at the end.
That is a good thing to keep in mind as well.
So fantastic. We talked about body language and how important that is. Also, the topic of giving personal space to our audience, so not being too close. And anyways, it's also good for your eyes, right? When you think about audience engagement and interaction, of course, body language and the way that you convey enthusiasm, right, for the topic, and that's something you do also with your body language, with the smile, with the face, blah blah blah, with the way you speak, helps a lot. But what else would you say is very important, or what strategies do you employ or do you use to prepare for an online stage?
Yeah, so again, another three come to mind. So the first one I would say is employing pattern interrupts or state changes. So same thing, but essentially it is changing the format or introducing some sort of surprise that the audience doesn't expect. So if you have a speaker who's just talking for 30 minutes, your audience is going to tune out at one point because that's a long time to just kind of be doing the same thing. Our brains get bored of things really easily. So what you want to do is pattern interrupt, or create a state change. So you talk maybe for 2-3 minutes, you fade in a GIF, or you show a video, or you have people write something down, or you enter a breakout room. So just those little moments that kind of just give your audience a break and just surprise them, or like, they're expecting you to talk this whole time. So anytime you can ask them to contribute to the chat, or again, just break up the pattern, I think that goes a really really long way. That's like a really critical one for virtual presentations. Along those lines, movement is the second one that comes to mind. So constantly moving faster through your slides. It doesn't mean talking faster, but just going through the slides more quickly. Maybe you have less content on each slide. And again, fade in animations, transitions, that movement is going to keep people's attention versus just, I'm showing a slide for 10 minutes and I've been talking about this for 10 minutes. Again, the audience is going to tune out. And similar to what we talked about earlier, Barbara, with kind of like the what did you call it? The sign
And
post
posting.
sign posting. um, recaps I think are really important for
Yeah.
virtual presentations too. So that's something I noticed when I would watch other virtual speakers and I was trying to learn, what do I want to take away? What would I change? And a lot of people would talk, 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 talk. And then afterwards I was like, okay, that I feel like that was a good presentation, but I don't really remember what we just went over. And so I started adding recaps into my presentation. So after every section, I recap. At the end, I recap. And it's just a really good way to kind of, remind people what you just went over because, yeah, virtually, again, it's harder to pay attention. So I think
Mm.
those three things have been really, really great for me.
Oh, fantastic, Lorraine. And I think they also sort of reflect a lot your LinkedIn learning courses. So everybody out there listening or watching to this conversation later on and not live, check out lorraineklee.com. On Lorraine's webpage, you find a lot of free resources, also the possibility to get in touch with her. And if you look for a virtual speaker, she's definitely your go-to person. You find all the contact details on lorraineklee.com. But also Lorraine is a LinkedIn learning instructor. And of course, the LinkedIn learnings, also are they called micro learnings or the
Nano
short one?
learning. Yeah, it's a new thing, nano learning courses.
Nano learning,
Yeah.
nano, exactly. Whoa. The nano learnings, I saw them. And what I really enjoy when watching you is, first of all, the body language, how you appear in the video and how well or how easy it is to follow you, but also exactly those recaps that you
Mhm.
always do to make it easy to follow you, right? And at the end, that's the point as well when being a speaker.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, those courses have been so much easier for me to record because I have the experience as a speaker and creating, yeah, very digestible content for sure.
Lorraine, you also have a LinkedIn ebook that is accessible through your webpage. Tell me a
Mhm.
little bit about virtual presentation and the LinkedIn ebook. Where's the connects here?
Well, I think, so my mission is I'm very passionate about helping organizations and individuals stand out and supercharge their professional presence. So when I say professional presence, it's in both senses of the word. So how you come across to others and where others come across you. And so virtual presentations, of course, is definitely going to be, very important for how people see you. Do you look professional? Do you look credible? Are you even getting out there presenting? Like that's a great thing. Where others see you. That's a little bit mix of the presentations. And then also LinkedIn is a big piece of that, right? LinkedIn is kind of our virtual office now. And so I think being able to know how to promote yourself, to create helpful content, I talk about that in LinkedIn. I also talk about your profile. So, if you are trying to be a virtual speaker and kind of get your name out there and promote your work, having that really well put together LinkedIn profile is going to go a really long way in helping people kind of see you as legitimate and also establish that social credibility.
Fantastic. So everybody out there, check out lorrainekaylee.com and look out for the LinkedIn ebook. If we talked already a lot about the virtual body language, how to create engagement in the audience. And one thing that I always hear when we run our facilitated training programs for virtual hybrid people, it is how do you establish that emotional connection, right? That's like one of the trigger words, emotional connection. People want to bond with their audience. How do you do particularly this, but how do you manage to create an emotional connection with your audience?
Yeah, so two things. I think the first that we talked about, eye contact, is actually really important for that because eye contact on a virtual stage allows you to release oxytocin, or the audience feels like there's oxytocin being released, which is the social bonding hormone. So that's one of the really great benefits of doing eye contact on video is that you are feeling more connected, or the audience is feeling more connected to you. So anything you share, they're going to just feel a little bit more like they know you, they are connecting with you. The other thing I would say is just sharing stories or expertise and just being okay with being vulnerable and sharing challenges. It's really helpful before doing a talk to understand, okay, who is the audience? And this is the same for in person too, but who is the audience and what are their biggest challenges? And I think, in a virtual setting, even more so, we've had, many challenges over the years. So being vulnerable and just being more open, I think than maybe you might normally feel comfortable in person with a stranger, I think will go a long way in helping people also feel, willing to share and willing to open up with you as well.
So, would you suggest to use more storytelling in the virtual context than in an in-presence context, or would you just sort of use it as the same?
I probably would use a little bit more storytelling virtually, or at least it doesn't necessarily have to be like a full-blown story, but just something that makes people think, or something like a question or something that prompts them to reflect, or having them imagine a future scenario. So I think any kind of one of those things sort of help do the job.
Okay, great, great, great. Lorraine, we see that your audio, your video looks brilliant. I do see that, my God, my light here is not optimal. But what would you suggest in terms of AV, audio, video setup when it comes to a virtual stage? I see you a lot working with Prezi, of course. Do you work with OBS? Do you have a studio setup? Or where would you start if you're getting into the virtual presenters market to say? So what would you suggest our listeners to do?
Yeah, well, I like to always say to just keep it simple, honestly. Like, I don't spend a ton of money on my setup. I know you can get super, super nice, elaborate setups. But for me, I'm like, I don't, I want to just keep it simple. So I have an external microphone, I have an external webcam, I have some nice, lighting. I have two ring lights and a photo softbox in front of me because I don't have any natural light around me. And then, yes, I'll use software like Prezi, or I use Crisp, which is a noise canceling software as well. But besides that, like I don't have anything else. And I curated my background a little bit, and I think it's worked well for me. And I like to keep it simple and not, I think a lot of people get overwhelmed getting started with their own video setups. And so because there is so much you can do and there's so much technology you buy and so many cameras and you can have cameras here and cameras there. But I always like to say just keep it simple.
Keep it simple for the beginning. Absolutely. That's a great point. And I also think that like many of the webcams, like mine, for example, they have pretty good integrated microphones already. So
Nice.
as I'm not now in my virtual office where I used to be with my Blue Yeti, blah, blah, blah microphone, I'm using the webcam ones. So I would also suggest, if it's possible, you're traveling a lot, buy a good webcam with a good integrated microphone, because that helps you a lot to sort of make it easier for yourself as well.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good tip.
Lorraine, we are coming to a close to our LinkedIn Live. So I was wondering, when you think about the start and the closing of your virtual presentation, and I just did a facilitators training with AJ and Smart, and they said that even the closing is more important than the start, the beginning. So
Mhm.
what are strategies, or what are things that you have been doing that you really liked a lot when closing a virtual presentation, a virtual keynote?
Yeah, so I would say just always think back to that message that you want your audience to take away, and then don't be afraid to repeat it because you need to repeat things, especially virtually, multiple times for people to really kind of get it ingrained in their mind. So don't be afraid, and you should repeat kind of that main takeaway message. And then one other thing that's been working well for me, and I think all virtual speakers should pick up on, is usually you talk and then there's the Q&A section, and then sometimes people will just say, okay, all right, that's it, like, bye everyone. But you really want to make sure, tell the facilitator or the moderator ahead of time, like, I want to have a closing statement or just one last message, so people kind of remember that you're ending on the note that you wanted to end on versus kind of a flat note, like, okay, Q&A is done, like, bye everyone. So I think that's another good thing for virtual speakers to keep in mind.
Oh, that sounds really fantastic. And just another question comes to my mind,
Sure.
because many speakers, if they go on a stage, right? So as I do, I have my preferred music. I even tell that the organizers. So I'm not sure if that's very common, but usually they say that's fantastic. That's fine. They're happy if I provide them with the music, anyways. What do you do in a virtual stage? Do you have music at the beginning? Do you try to have music at the end? Or are you just sort of leaving them with that last message at the end?
Yeah, no music, but maybe I should think about that. Yeah, it's usually the last statement, and then and then maybe, you wanna include a CTA. So, usually it's connect with me on LinkedIn, send me a message there, let me know what you thought, or fill out a feedback form, for example. But I'll have to keep the music suggestion in mind. That would be a fun way to close out, yeah.
But what I love is the call to action, because we also want to encourage you in the LinkedIn event. You find Lorraine as a speaker, connect with her, follow her on LinkedIn. She's sharing stuff not only about her entrepreneurial journey, which is very interesting to read about, but also about virtual work, leadership, meetings, presentation skills, and how to find a remote job. So I read so many things that Lorraine was posting, really fantastic. So the call
Thank
to action
you.
is go to LinkedIn and check out Lorraine K. Lee's page and follow her. Lorraine, it was a tremendous pleasure having you here on the Virtual Space Hero LinkedIn live stage. Thanks a lot for making time in your busy calendar. I know that it is very packed these months. It was great talking to you. Thanks for providing and sharing so generously all your
Of
tips and
course.
tricks with us.
This was fun. Thank you for having me.
You know that I still have prepared a virtual cocktail for you backstage, so I will join you there in a minute, and
Okay.
I will just close down the session. Thanks a lot for being with us, Lorraine, again. Bye
Thanks,
bye.
everyone.
So a fantastic session again, yet with one of the leading experts when it comes to virtual presentations. Make sure to follow Lorraine, really very valuable content for virtual and hybrid work that she is sharing. Next week, we are picking up on yet another fantastic topic with Douglas Ferguson from Voltage Control. We are talking about how to facilitate hybrid meetings. And Douglas asked me just yesterday to include AI in the conversation. So be sure to be connected or mark your calendar already now on Thursday, 5:30 p.m. CET. And with that, I say thank you very much for being here again, for providing us with your questions beforehand. You know that the same link that I'm sending out beforehand can always be viewed afterwards. And I'm going to leave this now. I'm going to wish you a wonderful good morning, afternoon, or good night. And don't forget to become a virtual space hero. Bye.